where truth lives in you. Have you ever been in a room full of people, surrounded by noise and laughter, and felt absolutely alone? Not lonely for a person, but lonely for something you cannot even name. Have you ever done everything right, followed every rule, built every wall, achieved every goal, and still felt like you were standing on the edge of something vast, something calling you from the other side of yourself? Have you ever heard a piece of music, or watched the sun sink beneath the horizon, and felt a grief so beautiful it cracked you open, as if something inside you remembered a home you have never actually been to? That is not sadness. That is not a malfunction. That is your soul. And it is trying to tell you something that your mind has been too loud to hear. Your soul is not a religious concept to be studied on Sunday morning and shelved by Monday. It is the deepest room in the house of your existence. And hidden inside that room, pressed against the very wall where your fear lives, is the door to divine truth. Most people never open it, not because they cannot, but because they never stop running long enough to even find the handle. The room you keep locked. Think about a man named Marcus. He built a life that looked flawless from the outside. Corner office, beautiful family, a faith he performed so well that people in his church asked him to lead Bible study. But every night, after everyone went to sleep, Marcus would sit in his car in the driveway and feel something he could not explain. A hollow ache, a sense that he was playing a character in his own life. He read every book, he prayed the right words, but the ache stayed. What Marcus was feeling was not depression, it was not burnout, it was the voice of his soul knocking on the door of a room he had locked years ago, the room where his real questions lived. The questions he was afraid God could not handle. Because somewhere along the way Marcus had been taught that faith means silence, that a good Christian does not shake the table, that doubt is the enemy of God. And so he silenced the deepest part of himself and called it surrender. But here is the thing that nobody told Marcus, and nobody may have told you. The soul is not the enemy of faith. The soul is the instrument of it. Psalm 42 opens with a deer panting for water. Not walking politely, panting, desperate, thirsting in a way that cannot be managed or dignified. That is what David called the soul's relationship with God. Not a Sunday handshake, a desperate, aching, gasping pursuit. Does your faith feel like that? Or does it feel like a locked room, the noise that buries you? Here is a statement that may disturb you. The single greatest spiritual crisis of your generation is not immorality. It is distraction. You are not being destroyed by what you are doing wrong. You are being buried alive by everything you are doing instead of being still. You are scrolling while your soul is screaming. You are consuming while your spirit is starving. You are moving so fast that truth is standing on the corner of every quiet moment you refuse to take, holding out its hand and watching you drive past. The ancient Hebrew word for soul is nephesh. It literally means a breathing being. A living, inhaling, exhaling, pulsing creature. But you cannot breathe when you are sprinting. You cannot receive when your hands are always full. And you cannot hear the voice of divine truth when the volume of your own life is turned up to maximum. God is not shouting over your noise. He has never needed to shout. He is the still small voice that Elijah heard after the wind and the earthquake and the fire, after everything loud had passed, in the silence that was almost nothing. That is where truth lives, and that is exactly the place most people flee. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you sat in true silence? Not sleep, not distraction. Silence. When was the last time you let yourself feel what you actually feel, think what you actually think, and sit with the questions you are actually carrying? Your pain is a portal. Vosesh was the supersensual utility in the sun. There is something deeply counterintuitive about the way God works, and if you miss this, you will spend your entire life treating your wounds as obstacles instead of doorways. Your pain is not a detour from the path. Your pain is the path. The soul does not open fully in comfort. It opens in the fire. It opens in the breaking. It opens in the exact moment when everything you built with your own hands stops working, and you fall to your knees not because someone told you to, but because you have nowhere else to go. Think about Joseph, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, forgotten in a prison cell. If you zoom in on Joseph's lowest moment, it looks like abandonment. It looks like God fell asleep. But the soul that was forged in that Egyptian prison was the only soul capable of holding the destiny that was coming. The suffering did not delay the purpose. The suffering was the preparation for the purpose. Joseph could not have become the man who saved nations if he had not first become the man who survived betrayal. Your suffering right now, that thing you keep asking God to remove, it is not evidence that He has abandoned you. It may be evidence that He trusts you with something that requires a deeper soul than the one you currently have, and He is building it in you right now, in the dark, in the waiting, in the ache. What in your life have you been calling a curse that God has been calling a classroom? The mirror you avoid. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The reason most people never access divine truth through their souls is not because God is hiding. It is because they are. The soul is a mirror, and most people are terrified of what they will see when the fog clears, so they keep the fog. They keep the busyness, the noise, the performance. They keep being everybody else's answer while they refuse to look at their own face. Jesus had a conversation with a woman at a well in Samaria. She came in the middle of the day, which tells you everything you need to know. People drew water in the morning, together, in community. She came alone. At noon, she was hiding, and within 5 minutes of talking to a stranger, her entire hidden life was on the table. Not because Jesus came to shame her, but because the soul, when it meets the presence of divine truth, cannot maintain its costume. The mask falls off, and here is what happened after her soul was exposed completely. She left her water jar and ran into the city and said to everyone she had been hiding from, "Come see a man who told me everything I ever did." The most exposed moment of her life became her most liberated moment. Her wound became her witness. You have been protecting a version of yourself that was never fully alive, and the truth you are longing for will never reach you while you are standing behind that protection. The soul is the gateway, but you have to be willing to walk through it, which means you have to be willing to be seen. The language God uses. God does not primarily speak in theological arguments. He speaks in the language of your own soul, which means He speaks in longing, in wonder, in grief, in love, and in the whisper that finds you at 3 in the morning when all your defenses are down. He speaks in the beauty that destroys you. He speaks in the kindness that breaks you open. He speaks in the face of your child, the mystery of your own existence, the fact that you are conscious at all, that there is something it is like to be you, which is perhaps the greatest miracle no one ever tells you to pay attention to. Romans 8:26 says that the Spirit intercedes for us with groans that words cannot express. Groans, not arguments, not doctrines. Groans, because there is a communication happening in the depths of the soul that is too large for language. And when you stop insisting that God only speaks in the ways you have been taught to expect, and you open yourself to the full range of how truth arrives, you will begin to notice that you have been swimming in revelation your entire life and calling it coincidence. You will begin to notice that the moments that changed you were not random, that the people who arrived at exactly the right time were not accidents, that the book that found you, the song that broke you, the question that haunted you, all of it was the fingerprint of a God who has been speaking to your soul in every dialect it needed to hear. Come home to yourself. Here is where everything comes together. And I need you to hear this with every part of you. The gateway to divine truth is not a church building. It is not a theological degree. It is not even the Bible. Read without the soul that makes it come alive. The gateway is you. The real you. The you underneath the title and the trauma and the performance and the fear. The you that was placed inside eternity by a God who did not make you by accident and has not forgotten you for a single second. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says that God has put eternity in the human heart, not in the human mind, not in human religion, in the human heart. That means the deepest longing you have ever felt, that ache for something beyond this, that sense that there must be more, that reaching towards something you cannot name, that is not your imagination. That is divine truth embedded in the architecture of your soul. You were built for eternity, and everything inside you knows it. And the journey toward God is not a journey outward to a far-off deity. It is a journey inward to the eternity He already placed in you. Stop waiting to feel worthy. Stop waiting to have all the answers. Stop waiting for the noise to quiet itself, because it never will. You have to choose the quiet. You have to choose the stillness. You have to walk back into the room you locked. Sit down on the floor in the middle of it, and let your soul say what it has been trying to say for years. Because divine truth is not something you find when you are perfect. It is something you find when you are finally, completely, devastatingly honest. The door has always been open. You came into this world with a soul that was designed to know God. Not know about God, know Him. The way you know the difference between real laughter and performed laughter. The way you know when someone loves you and when they are only pretending to. There is a knowing that lives beneath language, beneath logic, beneath every argument you have ever had with yourself about whether any of this is real. And that knowing is your soul, and that soul is your gateway, and the truth on the other side of that gateway has been waiting for you patiently, without condition, with a love so fierce and so specific that it knows the number of hairs on your head and the weight of every shame you have ever carried in silence. The question is not whether God is speaking. The question is whether you are willing to go back inside, whether you are willing to stop outsourcing your spiritual life to other people's experiences and start living your own encounter with the God who made you. Whether you are willing to be still long enough to hear the voice that has been calling your name since before you had a name. The door is not locked from the outside. It was never locked from the outside. The only person who ever locked it was you, and the only person who needs to open it is you. So here is the question I am leaving you with, and I need you to sit with it, not answer it quickly, not manage it, not file it away. Let it find the deepest room in you and stay there until it changes something. If you silenced every distraction, walked past every performance, and stood completely still in the presence of your own soul, what truth do you think God has been trying to give you that you have been too afraid to receive?